Okay, all right. So today we are going to see the Renaissance. Um, what's a Renaissance, everyone? You must be heard lots of times, right? What's a Renaissance? It's not clear to answer. So the Renaissance is one of the biggest cultural movement in history between 15th and 17th centuries. The Renaissance happened in literature, music, art, architecture, and all kinds of intelligence. So let's see how it begins first. So we learned Middle Age last time, right? So during Middle Ages, the church had taught that mankind was not worthless in the eyes of God. So this era is called the Dark Ages. All kinds of cultures and art were oppressed by the church, and artists were considered skilled craft workers. For the resistance of Middle Ages, the Renaissance came into the world. The word Renaissance means rebirth, and it refers to the revival of interest in ancient Greek and Rome culture, that one of the key characteristics of the period. The Renaissance humanists believed in the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake. So there are many of artistic techniques developed by the Renaissance masters. First one is perspective. We learned that, right? So which is creating an implied space, like a 3D implied space on the two-dimensional surface. And chiaroscuro, which is modeling mass drawing technique based on lightness and darkness. And also close observation of nature and the study of anatomy and theories of beauty and proportion. So these established painting, sculpture, mathematics. Artists were no longer mere craft workers from now on. So the Renaissance arose in Italy. Can you guess why the Renaissance began in Italy, everyone? And why was the Renaissance in Italy the most powerful? Can you guess the reasons? There are 3 reasons.
One reason could be it was a religious time period. Most of the arts depicted the religion of Christianity and things like that. So
very good approach. Very good approach. But why? Why it happened now in a specific the spot in Italy? Why it begins here? Italy has something here.
Because of Leonardo da Vinci?
Oh, yes, maybe. Yes, he is the master of the Renaissance. Yes. So there are certain reasons how the Renaissance began in Italy. So the first reason is that Italy was the powerful city-state which was engaged in extensive trade, and banking had developed. So their economic system was stable. Through history, most of the culture were flourished when they had this stabilization of economy. And the second reason is the church. The church in Italy was an important patron of the arts. So it was centered in Italy as well. And the last reason is the ancient Rome. So Italians had long lived in the ruins of ancient Rome, and they viewed themselves as the direct descendants of the citizens of the earlier. So these three factors made that the early and the high Renaissance are developed in Italy. So now we will see the great masters of the Renaissance. So there are three masters, right? Can you guess who they are? Someone already said Leonardo da Vinci. And who else? The three masters, Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo.
Michelangelo.
Yes. And who is the last one?
Raphael.
Very good. There we go. Yes. All right. So let's see the first master, Leonardo da Vinci. So this is Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci was a painter, sculptor, poet, architect, engineer, scientist, musician, and all-round intellectual. Leonardo da Vinci is the artist who most embodies the term Renaissance man. Many people consider him to have been the greatest genius who ever lived. He was possessed of a brilliant and inquiring mind that accepted no limits. And he was very interested in human body, like a skeleton, muscles, organs, etc. He anatomized dead bodies to study skeletal system, muscle, and even organs in pregnancy. So this is the Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci. So he depicted the consternation that occurred among the 12 apostles when Jesus announced that one of them would betray him. Leonardo da Vinci used the perspective technique here to show an implied space on the two-dimensional surface. Everyone, so what kind of perspective did Leonardo da Vinci use in this painting? We learned it actually. All right, let me give you the options. So we learned a linear perspective, right? And we learned foreshortening. And the last one is atmospheric perspective. What kind of perspective he used in this painting? Really? No one remember? Come on, everyone.
Linear perspective.
Very good. Linear perspective. There we go. So in this painting, he used one-point linear perspective with vanishing point on the center of the implied space. So this is a good perspective technique for compacting many objects in a limited space. Very good. And these are sketches to study one-point perspective by Leonardo da Vinci. And this drawing, this is a drawing to show the one-point perspective with the human body proportion. And this is the Mona Lisa, which is an oil painting on a wood panel by Leonardo da Vinci. and probably is the world's most famous painting. So everyone, look at this painting again. What kind of implied space did Leonardo da Vinci use in this painting? I just gave you 3 options: linear perspective, foreshortening, and atmospheric perspective. What kind of perspective he used?
What are the options again?
Oh, can you say again?
What are the options again?
So the first one is linear perspective, right? And the second one is foreshortening. And the last one is atmospheric perspective. So what kind of perspective he used in this painting?
Is it the third one?
The third one, yes. Seems like the third one, yeah. Very good guess. Yes, that's the answer. Very nice. So he used atmospheric perspective to show the distance by the saturation. Very good. So, and can you guess why this painting is so famous and why it is historically important?
Because of her smile.
Huh? What kind of
Because
style?
of her mysterious smile.
Oh, the smile. Yes, the smile is very important. Yes, it's kind of shocking, you know, to the people in the Renaissance. Yes, it is. But the main reason is because the painting was one of the first portraits to depict the theater in front of an imaginary landscape. And Leonardo da Vinci was the one of the first painter to use the aerial or atmospheric perspective. So that's why this painting is so famous. And the winding path and the distance bridge give only the slightest indications of human presence. And Leonardo da Vinci has chosen to place the horizon line not at the neck, but on the level with the eyes, thus linking the figure with the landscape and emphasizing the mysterious nature of the painting. Now let's move on to the next master of the Renaissance, Michelangelo. Michelangelo is beyond legend. His name means Archangel Michael, and he began serious work as an artist at the age of 13 and did not stop until that claimed him 76 years later. His equal may never be seen again, for only a particular time and place could have bred the genius of Michelangelo. So Michelangelo was Leonardo da Vinci's rival. He began his career in Florence, but also worked in Rome. Michelangelo had established his reputation as a sculptor by the age of 25. And this is David Stadu, the Michelangelo created for the first time as the sculptor. So the David Stadu is not a simple restatement of Greek art. So he studied human anatomy and had dissected corpses. He translated this knowledge into a figure that seems to be made of muscle and flesh and bone, though all in marble. This is a truly beautiful sculpture. And there is amazing fresco painting here. Michelangelo embarked on the masterpiece that has become his best known work, the ceiling frescoes of the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican in Rome. He had been called to Rome by Pope Julius II, who wanted the artist to design his tomb, a large monument with numerous sculptures and paintings. So it has lots of holy stories. So let me share a video to see the amazing painting in detail.
We're in the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican, which has tremendous importance to Catholicism. This is where the Pope will lead Mass, but perhaps most famously, this is the room that the College of Cardinals uses to decide the next Pope.
And every surface of this space is decorated, from the beautiful mosaics on the floor. The walls are painted with.
Look at this, everyone. Isn't it amazing? He painted everything here, the inside of the church. This is amazing.
That's beautiful.
It's beautiful, yes.
Frescoes by early Renaissance artists. The wall behind the altar was painted by Michelangelo later in his life. And then, of course, the ceiling.
And everybody is looking up. Their necks are craned, and of course, it's magnificent. We're here in the late afternoon on a day in early July. The light is diffuse, and it makes those frescoed figures feel.
And here's the secret. So there are now the columns with the sculptures, right? These are also painting. Can you believe it? It's so genius.
So dimensional, they feel like sculpture.
And you can imagine what it was like when this was unveiled in 1512, after Michelangelo had worked on it for years, how different, how revolutionary Michelangelo's figures seemed.
Well, he was first and foremost a sculptor. And it wasn't actually until a relatively recent cleaning that we knew his brilliance as a colorist. But for him, line and drawing and the act of carving figures out of paint was primary. And you have this extraordinary ability to render both strength and elegance simultaneously.
They have a massiveness and a presence that is charismatic, but there's also a sense of elegance and ideal beauty. So let's describe what we're looking at.
Okay, probably the most important are the series of 9 scenes that move across the central panels.
And those are framed by a painted architectural framework that looks real. It doesn't look like paint. And we start with the creation of the world, God separating light from darkness.
I love that scene. This primordial God, light on one side of his body and the darkness of night on the other. This initial separation and division to create order in the universe.
And then we move through to the creation of Adam, the creation of Eve.
Well, the separation of the sexes.
And the creation of God's most perfect creature, human beings. And then the fall of human beings.
In a sense, the separation of good and evil.
Man and woman disobeying God, causing the expulsion of Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden. And then the far end, by the entrance, we see the scenes of Noah.
So these are all scenes from the first book of the Bible, from the book of Genesis. And it's so interesting because, of course, this is a Catholic church, and yet we don't see images of Christ. But these Old Testament scenes lay the foundation for the coming of Christ.
And
all right, so I'm going to stop the video here. And you can continue to watch the video after this meeting. Isn't it amazing, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Surreal.
Yeah, so realistic. I love his fresco painting in a Sistine Chapel. All right. So the ceiling frescoes we just saw together were an immediate success, and Michelangelo continued as a papal favorite Pope Paul III encouraged the sculptor to work as an architect now. In 1546, Paul named Michelangelo the official architect of the new St. Peter's, one of the 4 most important churches in Rome. Now we saw this, we learned this church, the St. Peter's, the basilicas type of architecture. So by the time he began work on the project, Michelangelo was an old man, well into his 70s and physically tired, but his creative vigor was undiminished. But unfortunately, Michelangelo did not live to see his church finished. The magnificent central dome was complete after his death by another architect. So there is a video to show the beautiful church in Muderum. Please watch it to see the inside and the outside of the church in detail. And let's move on to the last masters of the Renaissance, Raphael. Raphael was a slightly younger rival of Michelangelo. His work is admired for its clarity of form, ease of composition, and visual achievements of the Neoplatonic ideal of human grandeur. So looks familiar with us, right? So this is Raphael's the most famous painting, The School of Athens. So this painting is in the new St. Peter's Church we just saw, which was the Michelangelo's last work. Nearly every great Greek philosopher is present in this work, including the 2 main subjects located at the fresco's central vanishing point, Plato. So this is Plato and his students, Aristotle. So some of the ancient philosophers resemble Raphael's contemporaries. In one of his earliest work, Raphael painted 3 of the Graces from classical mythology. And this painting is best known for the 2 winged angels at the very bottom of the composition. The Sistine Madonna is an oil painting that was commissioned in 1512 by Pope Julius II for the Church of San Sisto in Piacenza. And on its completion in 1512, this rendering of Pope Julius II was unlike any previous papal portrait. Usually, popes were painted frontally or kneeling in profile, but the Pope was not frontally and not in profile, as you can see. And also, the exceptional was the facial expression, showing the subject lost in thought. This oil painting was produced in 1505 in Venice, Madonna del Prato. It exemplifies a religious theme. It depicts Mother Mary with Jesus Christ and John the Baptist. So in this painting, Mary is guarding the 2 lovely children. So compared to the previous 2 masters, Raphael's paintings are very soft and smooth, and it makes viewers feel comfortable to see. Scholars generally date the end of the High Renaissance in Italy to the death of Raphael in 1520. The various artistic trends that emerged, the one that has interested art historians most is known as mannerism. The word, the late Renaissance in Italy is called mannerism again. And the word mannerism comes from the Italian manuera, meaning style or stylishness. And it was originally used to suggest that these painters practiced an art of grace and sophistication. Later critics characterized mannerism as a decadent reaction against the order and balance of the High Renaissance. So today, most scholars agree that mannerism actually grew out of the possibilities suggested by the work of High Renaissance artists, especially Michelangelo, whose influence on the next generation was enormous. So look at the left images. So these are Michelangelo's the ceiling painting from the Sistine Chapel in Vatican. So compared to the other masters, Michelangelo's painting style is a little bit more exaggerated. And now, look at the right mannerism painting. So this is the mannerism painting from the late Renaissance, and it's pretty much persuasive that mannerism grew out of the Michelangelo's style, right? So compared to the art that came before it, works in the late phase of the Renaissance are often depicted in mannerism, which tends to feature compositions that are more chaotic, emphasize movement, and possesses greater emotional intensity. So the successes of the High Renaissance could not be rivaled. Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, and Michelangelo were thought to have achieved perfection in the arts. Artists were faced with the predicament of where to go from there. In reaction, instead of harmony, many artworks stressed dissonance. So distortion and disproportion were intentionally used to emphasize certain anatomical features and themes. So rather than mathematically precise depictions, artists created ambiguous spaces with multiple focal points like this painting. And the Renaissance became widespread in North Europe. So there is a video about the Renaissance in the North Europe in Muderum. So please watch it to see diverse and beautiful Renaissance work of art. So I hope you enjoy to see the Renaissance masters' beautiful works through this chapter. And let's check today's discussion together. So this is today's discussion topic. Everyone, I need you to go to week 11 and go to discussion 11.1 to see today's discussion. We just learned 3 Renaissance masters, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael. When you scroll down in this page, you will see many of video links here. So these are all the master's work of art video link. So please watch them, watch all of them before you answer the question. So after watch the videos, please compare these 3 masters' work styles and write which artist's work preference. So this is today's topic. Any question about this?